It is a majestic, like 80 to 82 degrees. And it's I'm telling you, it's got this earthy kind of salt of the earth kind of flavor to it that really makes me kind of think about the farmers and, you know, the place where the agave was grown and that kind of thing. Thinking back on time spent out in the desert and, you know, people you meet and experiences that you have and things that you see. There's really something, you know, really kind of meditative about it, and something very spiritual about it.
The liquid culture.
Guys, did you know that today is National Tequila Day? I didn't know this until just a little bit ago, which is funny because I actually had this episode planned about a week and a half ago, and in fact was planning on not even shooting it today because my allergies have been so bad. I was going to postpone it, but then I found out it was National Tequila Day, and it just felt like fate. We had to end up doing it. It wouldn't have felt right not doing it. So what I've decided is, as you can probably tell, the sun's setting here. I'm just gonna hang out, drink a little tequila, a little mezcal, talk a little bit about Sotol, and just kind of sit here and talk with you guys and drink a little bit, and you know, we'll keep it casual, watch the sunset, and you know, I'll cut it down later, you know, to make it something that's a little bit more, you know, approachable and not just me rambling on for an hour. So, cheers. So you'll notice this is only the second spirits-based video that I have done on the liquid culture, and I've told you guys before, there's not going to be a ton of spirit stuff on the site. I'll want to ultimately have, you know, at least one project for each of the major kind of classes of spirits, and then continue furthering along the classic cocktails series as well. The reason that I wanted to make sure this one was one of the first that I did was because, for me, next to whiskey, tequila, and soon forcing its way in, Sotol, have become my favorite libations, one might say, from the hard liquor category. The reason being, I think, is because for tequila, I mean, I can drink tequila any time of year. In addition to that, tequila is becoming something that is so much further than just taking shots at a bachelor party, or you know, when you're in Mexico, or drinking margaritas out at a Mexican restaurant. Tequila and you know, kind of close comparison, mezcal, and soon coming in Sotol, they've kind of gravitated towards this craft product that is a lot more highly thought of than what it has been in the past. So for me, I wanted to, since it's summer, and since I love drinking tequila in the summer, wanted to do this episode. Now, one of the other things that kind of pushed me to this was, before I even launched the site, I was introduced to Sotol. I know mezcal has become quite popular amongst the kind of craft spirit consumer, and but for me, Sotol was the thing that's kind of captured most of my attention. And I went and visited Desert Door here in Driftwood, Texas, recently, and that really just kind of spurred on my desire to want to do a video talking about the various agave-based, and for Sotol, not agave-based, but in a similar family, spirits. So that's the reason for the episode today. It is a majestic, like 80 to 82 degrees in Stonewall, Texas. I think the high we hit today was like 85, 86. I mean, it's been an incredible summer so far here in the Hill Country, and I thought this would be nice to sit out and do. So what we're starting with here, guys, is Casa Dragones. So this is the tequila offering that I've got on deck today. This is, in my opinion, the only tequila that I wanted to include in this project. Casa Dragones is not only my favorite tequila, but it is one of my top favorite spirits overall. It is made like all tequila is made, or at least from the raw materials of what all tequila are made from, which is agave. To be called tequila, you have to use a majority portion of blue agave, but most of the best ones are made with 100% blue agave, this one included. There are a lot of kind of technicalities with tequila, especially when we talk about the aging differences with tequila, and all that stuff is on, as per usual, the write-up on the site. Don't want to get too much into it on the video, but for Casa Dragones, they harvest their agave from the trans-Mexican volcanic belt. So the soil that the agave is grown in has a very nice mineral content from that volcanic interaction, as well as the water they use comes from that range as well. So a lot of good minerality to the soil and to the water that they use. The method they use for extracting the sugars from the agave core is very kind of minimalist, low impact extraction using water and steam, and what you're left with is a product that they choose not to age. And so we have their Casa Dragones Blanco today, which is an 80 proof unaged silver tequila. It is a little pricier, 65 bucks a bottle. Now they do offer their Joven, which is a blend of this tequila and some aged tequila. That bottle's about 300 bucks. I've had them both. I don't think there is that much better of quality and flavor with the Joven above and beyond the standard Blanco, which would warrant such a high price. So my recommendation is go with the Casa Dragones Blanco, spend the $65, because guys, this is an incredible sipping tequila. If you're looking to kind of bulk up your tequila offerings in your bar, I think that Casa Dragones has to be one of the tequilas that is on your bar if you're wanting to move into that kind of sipping tequila range. This tequila, being a Blanco, there is not another silver tequila out there that can touch this tequila. And there quite honestly are very few Reposado or Añejo tequilas that for the price can touch the quality and flavor concentration that is in this tequila. I mean, it has that very classic kind of sweet citrus aroma and flavor that will give it away as a tequila, but beyond that, the depth of flavor with this it's beyond what you would expect from a silver tequila. I mean, there are herbal qualities, there are surprisingly deep qualities in here, almost like spice qualities, which is strange coming from a tequila that's been unaged. There's minerality. There's just a lot of complexity with this tequila, and if you are looking for a smooth sipping tequila, this guy, I mean, it for me, I don't like a tequila that's too smooth. I like a tequila that gives you a little bit of bite, and this one has just that right balance of bite to smoothness, to where someone's not going to be put off by it, but at the same time, someone like myself who likes to really taste their tequila, to really know that what you're drinking is, you know, a good quality, high proof product that hasn't been watered down, this one really meets that mark perfectly. It doesn't get any better than that, guys. Now, this is not a tequila you would purchase for making drinks with. Even something as simple as a ranch water, I would not recommend with this tequila. I honestly don't even like to have a lime slice or something like that to go with it, because I don't want to cover up anything that they've done here. Their mission is to not do anything to really disrupt the pure essence of the agave that they've farmed. And the last thing I want to do is cover that up with any sort of lime or anything like that. So Casa Dragones, major recommendation. If you're trying to up your tequila game, I would definitely pick a bottle of this up. And it's become much more readily available now. They've increased their production to where, as before, it was a little bit more difficult to get. Up next, guys, is a bit of a touchy topic for me. I am a very, very late adopter to the mezcal game. I know that it's become incredibly popular. I know that the difference in tequila and mezcal, from the terms of tequila being kind of the big industrial product and mezcal being the very small kind of farmer-owned and operated product, has really increased its popularity, especially amongst millennials. But for me, because of the process that mezcal goes through for production, it lends itself to this very heavily smoked product. And for me, I have never been a big peaty, smoky Scotch drinker. That turns me off when that's all I can get is just straight smoke. For most of the mezcals that I have consumed, they do the same thing. Hardcore crazy smoke characteristic, like straight up campfire. That is just hard for me to really pick anything else up. I have found a bottle, however, that I quite enjoy. Oaxaca. Quite literally, the correct pronunciation of Oaxaca, the state in Mexico in which this comes from. If you're unfamiliar, you may have seen it before on like Oaxacan cheese or something on a menu at a higher end Mexican restaurant. Is literally spelled Oaxaca, and that Oax is pronounced as a wa in Spanish. So the Oaxaca Mezcaleria here have decided to do a literal pronunciation as the name of their company. Now, these guys have a little bit of history in that it is a fifth generation mezcalero who is overseeing the entire production at Oaxaca, but they still use, although this you may look at this label and say, oh wow, it looks kind of new and fancy, and there's no way that that's some kind of traditional mezcal. In fact, every production or every piece of their production in the making of this particular mezcal and their entire line of mezcal is done in a very traditional kind of ancient method of mezcal production. A lot of people argue that mezcal has been produced for much longer than tequila. Mezcal is one of those spirits that has a slightly looser regulations than tequila does, so therefore you've got a much wider array of mezcals in terms of like the flavor profiles, like where they're coming from, smaller production, farmer kind of estate grown agave. They can use agave other than just blue agave. They can be made in places outside of the tequila state. So you get a lot of variation with mezcal, and that whole kind of small batch thing is what is so important to people, especially these days, and that's, I think, why mezcal has really skyrocketed in its overall popularity. So where does the smoke come from? So with a lot of tequila production, it's the same thing. So it's still agave, you still cut all the leaves off, you're still left with the piña, which has to be split and cooked somehow in order to convert the starches to sugars. So with tequila, a lot of times this is done in like an industrial oven. For mezcal, the method is still done in these earthen pits, which are essentially big holes that have been dug in the ground, filled with hot stones or smoldering wood or a combination of things. The piña are then placed inside of this pit and covered up, and usually roasted for anywhere from 2 to 7 days. So that's where that smoky quality comes from. And what I found with this tequila, and I don't know if it's because it's an entry-level tequila or if it's because I've been drinking a lot more Sotol lately, which is kind of like a middle ground between tequila and mezcal. This one does not have that overbearing, smoky campfire smell and flavor. It is there. There is some smoke and campfire, so those of you out there who enjoy that, there's a little bit of that with this, although if you're a big campfire guy, I don't think this is the one for you. But for someone who is not so crazy about that and is wanting to kind of tip the toe into the mezcal game, much like I'm trying to do, this might be a good bottle for you. It has this almost like clay pot, almost like a chimenea kind of a smell to it. Much less kind of campfire, more like I just kind of doused a fire that was in a chimenea, and the chimenea, you can smell the clay, and you can smell the dirt, and you can smell the smoldering kind of ashy smoke. That's kind of what this one smells like. I mean, it really kind of takes me to a place where I'm kind of out in a desert, field somewhere, and there's like a fire that was just put out, and you can really smell all the kind of vegetation that's around, and the kind of like that dry desert air. So yeah, I mean, again, guys, this is the first mezcal I've ever had that I enjoy. I wanted to include mezcal in this lineup here today because really the kind of point of this is to put you guys on some good bottles, but two, to kind of show the differences in tequila and mezcal, and honestly, quite honestly, my biggest excitement of this project is to introduce you guys to Sotol, because that one is becoming a huge favorite of mine. But I'm stoked on this bottle, guys. It's earthy. It's got some spice, some kind of toasty spice, in addition to that smoky campfire thing that isn't overly prominent with it. It's like I said, I like with the overall mouthfeel. It's got a little bite, but still real nice and smooth going down. Good warming sensation all the way down the throat into the belly there. And it's I'm telling you, it's got this earthy kind of salt of the earth kind of flavor to it that really makes me kind of think about the farmers and the place where the agave was grown and that kind of thing. So really enjoy this bottle, and I could see by about halfway through this bottle, I could see this becoming one of my new favorite bottles. I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm drinking out of these really badass little cups that I got from Desert Door. Really enjoy drinking my desert spirits out of these guys. It really kind of makes me feel like I'm being super authentic. So I want to go back and forth here. The reason I brought two out was I wanted to go back and forth to kind of do a little side-by-side comparison, tequila versus mezcal, and then I've got two Sotol that I want to do both at the same time as well. The wind's starting to pick up a little bit. It feels great for me, but I'm sure it's not doing so great for the microphone here. I promise, guys, we will get a solution figured out for the studio where I'm filming. It's becoming a pain in the ass, and I apologize. So, I mean, it's a stark difference between the two here. You've got clean, citrus, fruit-forward mineral, and then you've got dirty, earthy, smoky, like, I mean, if you've ever been to, like, out in the Chihuahua Desert or in like Marfa or Terlingua, and you just walk out into the desert and just grab a handful of that desert sandy gravel and smell it. I mean, that's what this is like. Major difference in the two of these. I mean, it's practically like drinking water going from this to this. I mean, this is just so smooth and clean and crisp, and this is just like, get your hands dirty kind of a honestly like a peasant beverage, which some of my favorite foods and drinks were derived from like peasant roots. That's nice. I really do enjoy that, guys. I was pleasantly surprised by this bottle, which was just kind of a bottle that I snatched off of my liquor store shelf here in Fredericksburg, Texas. So I'm cleansing my palate here, guys, with something that I picked up in Terlingua that I'm really kind of in love with here. So this is a grasshopper and ginger sea salt from Mexico. Is it gonna focus? Let's see if we can get it to focus there. Picked this up at the liquor store in Terlingua, where I bought my first ever bottle of Sotol, and it is incredible. I mean, I have yet to use this as rim salt on a glass for like a ranch water or a margarita or something like that. I'm looking forward to it. So far, I've just been using it to kind of cleanse my palate whenever I'm having some Sotol or some tequila. I mean, it's really quite a delight, the grasshopper and ginger sea salt here from Mexico. Really good stuff. Okay, guys, so we talked about tequila, we talked about mezcal, and those two things I wanted to kind of do together but separate because they are both agave-based spirits. Now, Sotol, and I'm gonna do this first one, I'm gonna pour in my mezcal cup. And the second one, I'm going to pour in my tequila cup, and I'll tell you why here in a minute. But Sotol is a little bit newer beverage to the scene here, guys. Now, just because it's new to the scene doesn't mean it's new overall. In fact, we talked about how mezcal is thought of quite often as the kind of old guard in regard to tequila. You know, say that like mezcal's, people claim that it's been being produced for much longer than tequila. Sotol, the claims go even further. So some people say, you know, the tequila maybe only, you know, a couple hundred years old, where mezcal goes back, you know, 200-300 plus years old. Sotol, the claim is that it's been being made for 800 years. Now, it hasn't gained a lot of popularity yet because even beyond mezcal being a peasant beverage, Sotol is really the true peasant beverage of Mexico. In fact, wars have been waged, almost like drug wars have been waged against Sotol production in Mexico because of this negative peasant connotation that has surrounded it for the majority of its life. And there's a ton of history, and there's a ton of pain and suffering behind the Sotol industry, so much so that it kind of became something where the only people making Sotol were, you know, old timers in Mexico who had, you know, whose families used to have a Sotol production facility, but that, you know, were just sick and tired of all the hardships that were associated with it. Now they just make it on their own for personal consumption, and it's got this kind of mystique that has passed on through generations, almost like the knowledge and the Sotol making methods have been passed on by these Sotol shamans, so to speak. And you know, the only people who really know how to make it because the knowledge was passed on to them by somebody else who learned from somebody else who learned from somebody else, and so on and so forth. So to give you a little bit of an idea about what the current Sotol environment is, you've got quite a bit of it. I say quite a bit, nowhere near the amount that is being produced of tequila or even mezcal, but still a good amount of Sotol being produced in Mexico, and especially in Chihuahua, where you've got some of the big time producers who have kind of taken it to an industrial standard there. So a lot of it being made in kind of those border states in Mexico, but the Sotol plant, different than agave, the Sotol plant Also, the actual scientific name for it is the Desalerian plant. There are two strains in which are used predominantly for sotol: Desalerian willeri and Desalerian texanum. That may give you a little bit of a hint in that sotol is also being produced in Texas. The only U.S. manufacturer, in fact, producing sotol is in Texas, and it's Desert Door, who I visited. Let's see, you're probably not going to get a good look at the label here because of the lighting, but I got to show you the back of the bottle too. I mean, this is incredible ceramic bottles that they have made in Mexico. They're beautiful. These guys are the only ones producing it in the U.S. as of right now. Terlingua Sotol is, or Sotol Terlingua is in the works and should be hitting the shelves soon. And I know of a few others that are kind of starting to work their way into the fray as well. But so the sotol plant, or desert spoon is its kind of nickname, is grown wild all over Texas. You would for sure recognize it if I showed you a picture of it. It really is almost like a weed to most people. And in fact, so much so that the predominant sotol production is done with sotol plants that are harvested off of farmland, where there was just a relationship struck up between the sotol manufacturer and the farmers, and that, hey, come get this weed off of my land. It's bothering my cattle. It's a nuisance. Come get it out of here. So it's pretty cool. I think that if the sotol industry continues to take off, they'll need a little bit more of a controlled way of harvesting their raw materials, but I'm really curious to see how that goes. So, reason why sotol has become one of my favorites, and honestly is probably even surpassing tequila for me, is that, like I mentioned before, sotol kind of finds itself in this middle ground between tequila and mezcal. So you've got it really kind of depends on which producer's bottle you're going with. Some do go that smoky route, but even the smokiest ones that I've had don't really touch the smokiness of the majority of the mezcals that I've had. Now, I will say that in knowing what and tasting these side by side, these two guys are actually quite similar, whereas these two guys are actually quite similar. So, sotol, much like mezcal, is incredibly varied in its kind of flavor profile, but what you have generally is something that is earthy, complex, kind of dirty, dusty, a little smoke, a little mineral, a little vegetal, but with, some fruit characteristics in there as well. I think I'm going to always have a very fond memory of sotol because the first time I tried it was in one of my absolute favorite places in the world, which is that Trans-Pecos region of Texas, where you've got, Marfa and Terlingua, and it's just beautiful, desolate, there's something about that part of this state and the country, honestly, that really does something for me. I mean, being out there with very few people and very little civilization, where you just can see for miles and miles and miles, and you've got all the local kind of vegetation down there, the agave and the sotol plants and the yuccas and the ocotillo and the cactus and all that stuff. It just, something about being out in that desert land is it really is something very therapeutic for me. And I think that this beverage, sotol, is absolutely meant to be drank in an environment like that. It just tastes like that place. There's no other way to put it. I mean, it tastes like that place. So what I've got with these two are two completely different sotol. Now, the reason that is the case is obviously every producer is going to make their sotol different, and you'll have varying degrees of aging and this and that, but the sotol plant, the Desalerian plant, is much more susceptible to its taking on things within its environment than the agave plant is. So the sotol plant is really going to give you the best expression of terroir. Well, I don't know what the hell I was talking about when the battery died, so we're just going to pick back up right at, terroir, talking about terroir of the sotol plant and how it can vary depending on where the plants are grown. They can taste so much more different from one to the other. But right now, unfortunately, what we have with a lot of sotol is a blending of plants that are harvested from different sites. So unfortunately, there aren't, at least that I've been able to find, any sort of expressions of sotol that are like a single farm or a single parcel or a single plot of land or whatever. But I think that we'll get there. I think that sotol is still in its infancy, and as the demand for it continues to rise, we will I think see a lot more different offerings from almost like a single vineyard, bottle of wine or something like that. So let's dive into the two here. So the first one I poured, okay, so to the left and your right is the Desert Door Sotol. To the side of that, we've got the Pescadores Sotol from Mexico. So we've got a Texas offering and a Mexican offering here. Now, what I've seen with these two is that they are quite different. And here's the label for the Pescador. Quite different in terms of packaging as well. I really love the Desert Door packaging, guys. I mean, this place, you got to check this place out if you're ever down in this area. Go to Driftwood and check out Desert Door. It's a really, really cool spot. So, Desert Door, as I mentioned before, very similar to the Casa Dragones tequila. I mean, it's smooth, it's fruit forward, it's slightly mineral. But it does have this earthy quality, this vegetal earthy quality to it that certainly sets it apart from the tequila. A little bit more bite than on the tequila, but still really smooth. It's got this bready characteristic too. I don't know what kind of yeast they're using. I know it's not a native yeast like we get with these two products, are both made with native yeast. This almost has like a little bit of a champagne yeast quality to it, which I wonder if they're using a champagne yeast because it's got a bready quality. It's got this like sage, this like burning sage, not a smoky sage, but like a burning sage, like a sage incense that you might have going in your, in your teepee or your yurt there in Marfa. I really love it, guys. I mean, there's this mystique that comes with sotol where it's almost like with the mezcal you can taste like the salt of the earth, the farmer, the tilling up the land and all this kind of stuff. With sotol, it's got this where you can like taste this like mystique to it. You just feel like there's something kind of mysterious and otherworldly, very, I think I put in the write-up, it's very kind of post-apocalyptic kind of vibe about it. It's like this drink that has so much history and story to it, and for me, has such a similar, like a connection to my favorite part of the state, and one of my favorite parts of the world. It's really something, there's something magical about it for sure. And then this guy, God, I mean, this is earthy, funky, smoky, dirty. It's beautiful. I mean, it's got all of those really kind of really dirty, earthy qualities, but there's something very, very beautiful, like kind of wrapping it all together. Man, sitting out here in this beautiful weather, watching the sun go down, I mean, it's bringing back some desert memories for sure. That's, I mean, two of the same spirit, one made in Texas, one made in Mexico, could not be more different, but both still have this very, very unique, it's a mystique. Smoky, earthy offering. Smooth, crisp. I mean, again, very similar, very similar. It's really kind of cool there. For Desert Door, the reason that's the case is that they go through a very clean extraction process, just like Casa Dragones, where they're using pressure, steam to cook those piña, and with Pescadores, very similar to the Oaxaca mezcal, earthen pits. The piñas are being cooked with actual fire. You know, I believe that the two of them even use these horse-drawn stone mills to mill the piña after it's been cooked. Native yeasts. So, what else, guys? A little salt. A little salt. Why not? A little salt. And grasshopper salt. You know, I've pretty much said everything I have to say, but I'm really enjoying just sitting out here watching the sun go down and drinking my desert spirits, as I'm calling them. Thinking back on time spent out in the desert, and you know, people you meet and experiences that you have and things that you see. Now, one way, guys, that I do like to experience all of these beverages, I've already mentioned it a couple of times, is in a ranch water. If you're not familiar with ranch water, it's real simple. Take a glass. I was actually planning on making one, but I dropped all my ice. Take a glass about this size, fill it with ice, squeeze half of a lime into it, pour yourself your desired level of tequila, mezcal, or sotol, and then top it off with some Topo Chico. Boom. I think that's it, guys. I think that's about the extent of the amount of time I want to spend on this. So I appreciate you hanging out with me here tonight with the sun setting, and learn a little bit about some agave and desert spoon based beverages, and I hope that it entices you guys to go out and try something a little bit different, especially in the summertime when these spirits are the perfect thing to be drinking. So appreciate you guys being here. Mitchell Chirac, The Liquid Culture, and we'll see you next time.